Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Gia. I am a 27-year-old lady who still lives in my mom's basement, and today is going to be a tri-monthly wrap-up because I have not posted a video since the December wrap-up in January. My reasons for being gone for 3 months are it be like that sometimes, grief, mourning, having to go back to work and throw myself into capitalism because I was gone from work for a month, and it took me a really long time to not only recover a little bit mentally and emotionally, but also feel comfortable getting back to where I was financially mostly. So unfortunately, reading has gone to the back burner for me. I am extremely behind in my reading goals for the year. I might actually have to lower them because it has gotten so bad. But I have read enough between January, February, and March to be able to talk about those books. I have read 14 books in the last 3 months, which to some people is a lot. To some people, that is like more than they read in a year. For me, that's bad. For me, that's really bad. I should be closer to 20 to 25 books. So I'm about 5 to 7 books behind. I have also been working on other videos that are of a longer format. So the video that I've been working on for the past month that I've been scripting is a chaotic plot summary of something I'm not telling you yet, but I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it's been a really nice, like, therapeutic experience to write the script because it's about a piece of capital L literature that I am very passionate about, and I do like that format of video creating. I know that that is not an uncommon template for making videos these days. I know that's very popular, but I personally find it extremely fun to go through with it. So I think I might do a couple of videos in that format for a little bit just to kind of shake things up. And I also have a couple of other ideas that are floating in the back of my head, but I can't do this full time. So it's just been a struggle for me personally to balance my IRL job and then this. And I also made a return to streaming. We're going through a lot. There's like literal dust on my mic arm right now. Oh no, I've been using the microphone, believe me. I don't shut the fuck up, but I haven't like dusted. Let's briefly go over my statistics. Like I said, I read 14 books in the last 3 months. 7 of them were in January, so that tells you I had a pretty good start to the year. I just didn't get around to filming. For whatever reason, I've had a very big mental blockage when it comes to filming in general. But I did 7 books in January, which was about 2,200 pages and almost 40 hours of audiobook. Most of them were fantasy, romance, and then LGBTQ, which are we surprised? January is when we had anywhere from a 1.5 star to a 4.75 star. So we had the complete range, the complete rainbow of star ratings, truly. In February, I only read 3 books under 1,000 pages and 14 hours of audiobook. They were fantasy, short stories, romance, and literary. Also, I had a 1.75 to a 4-star range. I had a bit of a problem where every book I was reading was bad, and I have had that happen to me before, where it was really hard for me to keep reading because everything I was choosing to pick up was bad. So I had to start picking things on purpose that I knew that I would like, which in this case was turning into like contemporary romance and stuff, like just to kind of suck me out of the reading slump and give me something that I know that I'd like, and then get back into, what I don't know, like if I'm going to like or dislike something. March was 4 books and about 1,600 pages and 38 hours of audiobook, and that was mostly fantasy, young adult, and romance, anywhere from a 4 to 5 star range. It was March where things started to bounce back because it was in between January and February where I was struggling to find books that I liked because I kept going back and forth, and the yo-yoing was not very fun. But then it was in March when things started to recover a little bit more. So we started out January pretty strong with What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This has been pretty popular on book Twitter in particular. This made the circle. Also, Isabel Ibanez and Rebecca Ross are like BFFs, and Rebecca Ross wrote Divine Rivals, and Dreams Lie Beneath and A River Enchanted. Like, the two of them are IRL BFFs and like dedicate their books to each other, which is super fucking cute. I love that. This book was practically made for me. This mix of a soft magic system through the lens of looking at history and archaeology and also solving a mystery. This book was tailor-made for me. I rated it a 4.25. You'll have to excuse me if I don't remember a lot of these books. I did listen to this on audio, but you'll have to excuse me if like I don't remember everything about these books. What I do remember not liking, which was why the book is rated lower than 5 stars, even though it was like tailor-made for me, and like the mystery was really good and the suspense was really good, the plot itself was good. For me personally, what dragged this story down from a 5-star or the 5-star range or a 4.75 to a 4.25 was the characters themselves. No one took the main character Inez seriously at all. Like, not a single person took her seriously at all. She was infantilized really, really bad. I was really hoping for a protagonist that people took seriously, because this is billed as Death on the Nile meets The Mummy. If you've seen The Mummy, then you know that Evie, while a woman, yes, is taken extremely seriously for the time period and people rely on her knowledge a lot, Inez knows a lot. And what I did not like about this book is that she was extremely infantilized. And I don't remember the love interest's name right now. I'm so sorry, but I found him extremely obnoxious. Sorry. I know that that's not an uncommon thing for me to say, is that when it comes to a book where there's a romance subplot, I don't like the men. But that's potentially a me problem. I found him to be incredibly obnoxious. I found him to be very condescending and patronizing, and I did not like him, and I don't know why Inez loves him. I will be so real when I say that. I didn't understand. Like, the book itself gets a 4.25 from me, but the characters and how the characters like are treated and how they're developed gets like a 3. Solidly, what drags this book down is the characters for me. But I will still read the second book, because maybe book 1 is, you know, the start, you know, like, where are we going to be in book 2? Because by the end of these characters' journeys, at the end of this series, I might love the characters by that time. Like, I'm willing to give the book more of a chance if my issues with it are the characters, because in book 1 you're not supposed to love everybody. In fact, there's probably somebody that you don't like that by the end you're going to love. I think that's part of the point of a character's journey. Speaking of books I don't like, the second book I read in January was House of Sky and Breath by Sarah Janet Marathon. And my fucking god, the horrors never stop persisting. Sarah Janet just does not know how to hire editors. Like, I'm honestly convinced at this point that she is paid by the word that she writes. My issues with this book are the same as my issues with the other book. I actually liked this book less than the first one, believe it or not. I think I rated the first book 3 stars. I don't remember right now. I rated this 2. As somebody who has read and loved ACOTAR, even though I don't want to talk about it all that much because of Miss Sarah Janet's reputation, I did not like this. I think if I'm going to talk from a purely review standpoint, this is just objectively not a good book. Maybe subjectively to you it might be a good book, but objectively this is not a very well written book. What I find to be the most difficult thing about this series is that there's too many characters, and this is a very common complaint I have lately. Way too many characters. I have no idea who people are. Like, no fucking clue. I also am extremely confused by the world building itself. This is something that I described with House of Earth and Blood. This should have been something that I liked. This should have been something that I liked because it's an author that I have liked in the past. But what I think Sarah Janet needs to understand is that her ball game and her genre is not even high fantasy, but like romantasy. Like, that over there is her genre. She has written that well. She has a following in the romantasy category. When she moved over to urban fantasy, it's a very different vibe. It's very much a different genre. Like, it's still a fantasy genre, but when she moves over to urban fantasy, it just doesn't work for her. Like, urban fantasy to me personally has more of a sci-fi vibe to it. Romantasy is more of like the fantastical elements, the magic. But then urban fantasy has more of a logical, this is this way because of this. There is a very almost scientific reason as to why things are the way that they are, versus fantastical or theological is the difference. I think to me is like the way that the world is created and the way that the world functions physiologically is different because it's based on more of a theological and fantastical system versus a logical and scientific system. Those are that it is a spectrum. You can have a mix of both. As we know in the third book in Crescent City, there is some crossover between the ACOTAR characters and the Crescent City characters. We know that that exists now. Even though I haven't read the third book, I know that that exists. That being said, there is a difference craft-wise when it comes to writing books like that you can be very, very good at one and not so good at the other, because I found the world building in Crescent City to be lacking. I felt like I needed graphs. I felt like I needed tables. I felt like I needed a newspaper article that was like printed in the book for me. There was just a lot of things that were missing for me, because I'm expecting an urban fantasy to be explained to me because of that basis in the logical and the scientific. In that way, I'm expecting things to be a certain way because of something. It didn't feel very explained, and I think a big reason why people still like Crescent City is because the character work is done well here. I think that Sarah Janet is very good at her character work. I think she writes compelling characters that people like, even if they're not the most complex. I think that she writes characters people like. And at the end of the day, that's what matters the most, is that people are reading a story. Some people read a story for a plot. Some people read a story because they like the characters experiencing the plot, because they want characters that feel real to them. And I think that that is very valid and fair. And I think that the Crescent City characters do feel that way. I have said previously that I do like the character dynamic and the romantic dynamic between Bryce and Hunt. I felt like they like each other. Not just they love each other, I feel like they like each other. And I think that not every writer who writes romance into a story can write characters who like each other, because that's important. Like, people who are friends first, the people who just genuinely like to be around their partner and not just they love them so much they can't be without them. It's like, okay, but do you like them? Do you know how they take their coffee in the morning? Do you know how they like their eggs? The character work in Sarah Janet's urban fantasy is what keeps you going. But I personally could not rate the book any higher, because that's not the only thing I was there for. This is not a character-driven story. If this was a character-driven story, maybe I could rate the book higher. But this is a very plot-driven story. The characters are experiencing the plot. The plot is not experiencing the characters, if that makes sense. So in this situation, characters and good characters are not going to save the book. And that is why it is rated so poorly for me, is just there is no balance between good character and good plot. One is outweighing the other in the bad category. So for me, was not a good sell. Did not enjoy it. If you asked me anything about the plot, don't remember. Somehow Danica is still there and she is still important. Don't ask me why. She is the world's shittiest friend, and somehow she is still in this book as a ghost. Literally, you could show me a picture of Danica from Crescent City and Arthas from World of Warcraft, and they would be the same person. We need to see the difference between these two things. They're the same picture. They were relevant and important and present a very long time ago, but somehow they are still being talked about now.
No crown, no throne, not even a soul left for judgment.
And they are still being brought into shit, even though they are long dead. Next was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldtree. I gave this a 3.75. My feelings about this are short and sweet. I do not think that cozy fantasy is for me personally. I get very bored. I think I might, if I ever choose to read a cozy fantasy again, I need to listen to it, because that will be easier for me to absorb, because as I was reading this, I was extremely bored. I know to some people that this is like a warm blanket and a cup of tea. To me, this is boring. This is not relaxing to me. I am bored, and that is a problem. But if I want to read something that is more of like a cozy vibe that is meant to relax me, I need to listen to it in the future. So that might be a me problem. But 3.75 because it was cute. I liked the sapphic elements. I liked the story. The story itself is super cute. Like, it's a very cute story. It's just the execution of it, I think, is not fitting for me personally to be reading words off a page, because I get bored and my brain needs to go burr in order for me to be engaged. We have our first Anna Huang book of 2024. I read King of Pride, 4.75. When I tell you, I am so seated for everything that Anna ever writes, because that woman has me in a chokehold. I don't even fully remember exactly what happened in King of Pride, but Kai is so hot. Kai is so hot. Like, I wish that was me. This was a very rare situation where I actually liked the man. So that automatically props a book all the way up. Another banger from Anna Huang. I love her so much. This is not the first Anna Huang book in this tri-monthly wrap-up. Next is The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. I liked this. This was fun. I want you to imagine a girl who escapes a cult when she's a teenager, who has death magic, becomes a poison runner in a world where poison and like the power to be able to kill and therefore resurrect, basically the power of death itself, when that is such a valuable commodity, and she gets caught, and then she has to go help this like society of monks solve a conspiracy. Are you joking? Are you joking? That's so fun. Very fun, very atmospheric. The atmospheric vibe in this reminds me of House of Salt and Sorrows, which I did write a video script for, and I never got around to doing it actually, so I may have to actually like get around to it so I can at least verbalize how I felt about House of Salt and Sorrows. That was another really dark, gritty, and atmospheric read that I really enjoyed, and like even though it was kind of horror, it made me think, and that was why I rated it so highly. Foxglove King, I see you. I'm excited to pick up the sequel. I think the third book is coming out soon, actually, so I'm excited to pick up the next one. Next was Bookshops and Bonedust. I also rated it 3.75. Same thing, very cozy. This was very cute. I love the sapphic representation. I love when lesbians are happy, because they are not happy enough. But this is the same issue that I had with Legends and Lattes, is that this is too lighthearted, too cozy, too boring. I need to listen to books like this. That is a me problem. That is not a criticism. That is a me problem. I could literally rant about this one book for 45 minutes, because I've been thinking so much about how much I hated Iron Flame. I think the people who were accusing Rebecca Yarros of using AI to write her book may have been onto something, because the attempt to like shoehorn in a hard magic system, very strange and weird. I think if Yarros had taken this, and instead of going more towards a hard magic system of like the wards and powering them to keep the city safe in book 2, I think if we had gone for more of a at war, we're in the war camps, like we could have had Aka War Part 2 Electric Boogaloo with Violet and Xaden fucking in a war tent. Like, we could have had that. And that would have been better than this, because this was absolute tomfoolery in the dancery. The amount of character assassination that everybody went through. And I've been thinking, and I know that this is not an uncommon opinion, but I think that Fourth Wing is Divergent fanfiction. And I'm thinking about making a video on that, because I think making a simple PowerPoint presentation would be enough to prove as to why the two are the same. This was another situation where, similar to House of Sky and Breath, where I couldn't really understand how the book was being written, because the author couldn't decide what the fuck she was doing. Because with Iron Flame, there were those elements of sci-fi on one side, with like the wards and powering them, and how something about the dragons powering the wards around Basgiath that we're just now finding out about. What I believe would have been more effective in telling this story is to go more the fucking in a war camp direction. Like, we should have just gone straight to war, and that would have been it. Like, that would have been a much better time. If this took more of a fantastical turn, this would be a lot better. What are you doing? Like, what is the point? And there's supposed to be 3 more books of this. I actually found out that the 3rd book comes out on my birthday, and I wish it fucking didn't. The next book I read was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This was another miss for me. I rated it 2.75. I'm sorry to say that it was just not for me. It's just, if you want a very succinct description of what this book is. I want you to imagine Hogwarts, but the school is actively trying to kill you. Like, the moving staircases in Hogwarts are not moving because they're magical. They're moving because they're trying to kill you actively. And everyone is at risk of dying all the time while they're just trying to get an education, quite literally a deadly education. I didn't understand this book because it's basically about like an outcasted student who is taken in under the wing by a like hero who's very Harry Potter coded. I wish that I liked it because it was like you were supposed to go to school, you were supposed to survive going to this school, and then you could be put in an enclave, which the enclaves kind of reminded me of the institutes, like the Shadowhunter institutes, where you trained in magic and you learned how to fight demons, which was like a mix of Hogwarts and Shadowhunters, where you learn magic and fight demons. So a mix of both. Like, you're gonna Avada Kedavra a demon, basically. And then you get put into these enclaves, which were like institutions that were placed all over the world where you were part of like a magical bureaucracy in a way that was represented like throughout the world, and then you were like fighting on behalf of the magical is the vibe I was getting. So it was, I understand like the mix of concepts. It was just not very well executed. I know some people like to read books because it reminds them of something and it feels familiar. This, although it feels familiar, it was not good enough for me to continue reading, and that is a problem. So this was a no for me personally, and I'm pretty disappointed. The next book I read was Normal Rules Don't Apply by Kate Atkinson. This is a series of short stories. A lot of the stories are very gently interwoven, and it is done in a way that reminds me of the writing style of Stephen King. Everything that he writes, you are looking for that little thing that reminds you or calls back to a different something, because a lot of King's books and short stories are interconnected or in a similar universe or in the same universe but a different time period or something. And what the title means by Normal Rules Don't Apply is that presenting you with a story that has a very almost simple premise, but then it flips it on its head at some point. A queen who makes a bargain she cannot keep, a secretary who watches over the life she had just left, and a man whose luck changes when a horse speaks to him. So you start out with this like very almost simple premise, but then something happens and it turns to the fantastical. So it's almost like the process of telling a story structurally that you get kind of silly with it and you change it, and now the story has changed fundamentally. Whereas you have the first story that is talking about a queen, so it's like medieval, so you're expecting more of a medieval story structure, like kings, queens, princes and princesses, and then it changes and it's not suddenly a story about kings and queens and princes and princesses anymore. Same thing about the man whose luck changes when a horse speaks to him. Like, he's a man going about his life, and then a horse speaks to him, and then everything changes. So I think that I mean, I rated it 4 stars. I thought that it was entertaining. It did make me think a little bit, but it was just a way to spend some time. Like, this was just like this was fun. Like, you know, this was like me having a silly little time. It wasn't really something I was looking forward to reading. It was just something to read, and it was fun. I liked it. Next was Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. This has been on my TBR since like July. I had been pushing off the loan for a while. I did not like this. This is a 175 for me. This read like Hermione fan fiction, but it was bad. The magical woman who has several like IOUs to someone named the Bargainer. It's like a figure who like goes out and enacts violence against people, and like you make a deal with him and then you have to pay him back later down the line. He's a omnipotent, omnipresent, very powerful person who does stuff for you. He's almost like, I don't want to say a trickster. I almost think of him as like Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog, where he has power to do something, but you're going to owe him something in return that you're going to pay back like double. In this story, I don't even remember their names anymore, my God. The heroine who had all of these magical IOUs to the Bargainer, but then they realized that they had been falling in love this whole time. I didn't like it. And you know what's so funny is that this was on my TBR, like organically as a random pick that I saw in my library, and I'd just been pushing it off since July, but I saw somebody on my book Twitter, one of my mutuals, recently read this and she loved it. the way I felt so fucking betrayed. The next book I read was The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. I rated this 4.5 stars because Olivia is mother. I love Olivia Blake so much. At first, when I was reading this, it's the third book in a series, so it's the end of a trilogy. When I was reading this, at first I was like, I don't know how much I like it. Like, I don't know what I'm feeling. But then I read a Goodreads review that really made me think about the book, and it made me rethink the entirety of the trilogy itself in a completely different light. Because the way I have always seen the Atlas trilogy is a series about 6 people who are the most powerful beings in the world, and they are just constantly fighting with each other, constantly fucking each other over and in bed. They're constantly grappling for power as they're trying to overthrow the person that is ruling them. And in the end, you kind of got to this conclusion where it was kind of up in the air as to what happened. I mean, spoiler, but the entire trilogy itself just happened in Libby's head. Like, it never happened. The whole thing never happened. And so it came back to this like really cyclical ending of, actually, this was just a daydream. And at first I was like, that was interesting. But then the Goodreads review that I read that really put this into perspective for me, that helped me think about this in a different way. And this is already a series that I loved. This was already something that I really liked. I am deeply sorry that I'm going to read almost the entirety of this person's review, but like, shouts out to this person on Goodreads, because they really put into perspective, like, I had already loved the book series, but they helped me put it into perspective in a way that I didn't think about previously. And you know how I feel about books that make me think. They get 5 stars. It says, I feel like a lot of people seem to have missed the whole point of this series as a whole. It's not a love story. It's not a campus novel with a magical twist. This is a series about what would happen if you gave 6 of the most powerful human beings on the planet, none of whom have reached the age of 30, access to infinite knowledge, infinite power, and the possibility of making their wildest dreams come true. It's a story about obsession, hate, love, and privilege. What would it cost you to achieve greatness, and how far are you willing to push the boundaries to get it? By the time this book takes place, none of these characters truly know what they want anymore. They're lost, confused, afraid, and have most definitely lost their minds a little. They've seen all that they're capable of. They've been told it, promised it, even led to believe that they're invincible until they're not. The possibilities, the outcomes, the future, and the past. But they still don't understand each other. Who to trust, who to like, and who to want to understand. One of them has to die still. Those are the rules of the game, so who are they picking? Raina thinks she's a god. Callum thinks that he's invincible. Parisa sees too much. Libby's not Libby anymore. Nico is a kid in love with his best friend. Tristan has seen alternate dimensions we couldn't even comprehend. And then you've got Atlas, Dalton, and Gideon. One is so incredibly tired, one is utterly insane, and one might not be even real. This series is a study into human beings and what it takes to make or break us. It's a series about what ifs, whys, and hows. You'll laugh, you'll scream, you'll smile, and you'll cry. It makes perfect sense. It makes no sense. It's insane. It's a masterpiece. What would you do for everything? It puts it in a way that I didn't think about, because again, I loved this series, but to put it in a way that it's more philosophical, not in a way that the characters themselves like pondering the philosophy of their circumstances, but the philosophy of giving 6 of the most powerful people in the world every generation the power to destroy the world. And what are they going to do with it? Like, when you have that power in your hands and you're able to do it, will you? What will you do to make or break the world in your own image? Are you vain enough, or are you selfish enough to do it for your own reasons? Are you going to do it for the greater good? Are you going to do it for love? Are you going to do it for power? What exactly is your motivation to make the world in your image? I think that review defines the series so accurately, because I think it is really hard to really put into words, like put into a 2-sentence summary what this book is about. Like, actually, I think that is a very hard thing to encompass, because it is so abstract. Abstract is a very good way to put it. Literally no notes on that Goodreads comment. I love Olivia Blake, and you will find that out in my next video. Maybe not my next video, but a video that's coming. I'm so excited. You guys have no idea. Next, I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This was another very popular pick online. I just needed to feel something. I needed love that can move heaven and earth and hell and mountains. Like, I needed that in my life. And I was given that, but with no spice at all. There was a lot of like sexual tension, but there was no sex at all. I was like, for real? And this book made me feel all of these things. It has been brought to my attention that someone said that Powerless is Red Queen fan fiction. And you might be right. I actually, in one of my Discords, I actually have a section that they made dedicated for like a bunch of us, but me included, all about us talking about books. So every time I finish a book, I go in there and I talk about it. But about the Powerless review that I wrote, everyone has powers except those who don't. A plague runs rampant across the country. The king blames the plague on the powerless or the ordinaries and then commits a genocide. Girl has no powers. Girl meets prince, but he's the spare. Girl ends up in a Hunger Games-esque competition against several people, including the spare. Girl and the spare have genuine knife-to-the-throat lovers to enemies chemistry. Girl must survive. There is a revolution. Dual POV, well-written romantic fantasy, spunky girl lead. Better than the source material it's obviously based on. Personally, I think The Powerless is so much fun. It is definitely Red Queen fanfiction. If you have read Red Queen and then you read Powerless, the comparisons are comparisоning. However, this is 10,000% better. 4 stars. I loved it. I can't wait for the next one. We're almost to the end, I swear. The next book I read was Foul Heart Huntsman by Chloe Gong. This is the sequel to Foul Lady Fortune. Foul Lady Fortune, I loved. Foul Lady Fortune. I liked Foul Heart Huntsman less. I will say that. I rated it 4.25. At the end of Foul Lady Fortune, we found out who and what Rosalind is because she's, you know, this immortal assassin. And we figured out why she is the way that she is. We found out at the end of Foul Lady Fortune. And then we found out like the vast conspiracy to make more people like her. I found this incredibly intriguing because there was the dynamic of not only Rosalind trying to identify what made her the way that she was, but then also trying to stop the antagonists from making other people like her, all while trying to figure out if she wants to stay like this. I think that the identity crisis that Rosalind faces is very unique, but also very understandable. You find out why you're like this, and then you sit and you think about, well, do I want to do this forever? I'm going to be like this forever. Do I want to do this forever? Like, what is the life that I want to make for myself? What is it that I want to do? Who is it that I want to love? What do I want to accomplish after I save China? One thing I said about Foul Lady Fortune is that I enjoyed reading a historical fantasy and historical romance that was about a time and place in history that I did not know that much about. So I feel like I was learning something at the same time. Like I was learning about China versus Imperial Japan. And that's not something that in American schools you're not taught a lot. So I felt like this kind of closed a gap in my knowledge about world history. I thought that once again, character work, immaculate. I think that Chloe Gong is really, really good at her character work because she makes you care about each and every person and they feel like individual people, because sometimes when authors are writing their characters, they have a habit of making them feel and sound too similar. I think that this duology does a really good job of making characters feel individual. Last but not least, we have Twisted Lies by Anna Huang. My God, I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what you want from me. Anna, you have to stop doing this to me. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what crack she sprinkles into the pages of that Kindle. Another rare instance where I like the hero. I actually liked him. Was he despicable and had blood on his hands and like did some really questionable things with questionable legality? Absolutely. Was he an icon? Yes. Did he worship the ground that Stella walked on? Oh yeah, he did. So good. So here you have social media influencer gets with cybersecurity billionaire who is also kind of mob tie coded. She decides to, like, he's doing her a big favor because he likes her, to like lower her rent in her apartment because he likes her. She wants to boost her social media. She's trying to like chase some sponsorships and she's like fresh out of ideas. She decides to pursue Christian for like almost a PR relationship where they're supposed to look like they're dating. He like doesn't want his face shown. He just wants Stella to take pictures of them holding hands or like the backs of their heads or something and post it. Very behind the scenes boyfriend, very like incognito. It's like when you only see like face pictures of Logan Lerman like every solar eclipse. Wait, there's more. November 8th, 2026. Wonderful, perfect, great, amazing. I can't, there's really not much more I could say. Like, Anna really gets me. Anna gets me every time. Like, this book was over 500 pages and I read it in like 2.5 days. Like, she makes 500 pages go by like it's nothing. But if you try to give me a 500-page book of literally any other genre, and I am on the struggle bus. I don't know what it is about contemporary romance, but I could read an 800-page contemporary romance and feel great most of the time. I'm sure there are exceptions, but if you give me an 800-page Sarah Janet marathon book, I'm screaming. When am I off this roller coaster? When does it end? Like, the horrors persist and so do I, but like, when do the horrors end? Anyways, yes, that is all from me. Thank you so much for everybody's patience as I am trying to get back on the content creation wagon. I have been streaming more on Twitch, so if you like World of Warcraft content and the occasional 5% of the time I'm doing something else, please follow me on Twitch. I have a lot of fun. My Twitter has been getting a lot of attention recently. I've been having a lot of fun on the site formerly known as Twitter. I am going to start uploading my Twitch VODs to YouTube again, so if you see me posting more frequently and it is just my Twitch VODs, you can watch them. Ads on. I'm gonna put them in a playlist, so just put them on and go to work or something. I could use the watch time. Videos in the future, I'm going to try to pick them back up again. I need to really focus on not only making short-term videos, but I need to really zero in on the long form videos that I've been wanting to make. I think I need to focus more on not just quality, but I need to focus on like individual projects, because when you have a goal to read as much as I do every year, which is 75 books a year, it is very hard to like micro focus on a big project if you are constantly like every 4 days you're reading something new. The video that I have been scripting since February, I am hoping, what is it, April 4th? I am hoping to have up sometime in the beginning of May. Hi, just kidding. Go for the beginning of June. Because of who I am as a person. Okay, thank you. That one's going to be a big one. That's a big video. And I have other ideas cooking in this brain. Keep up with me. Stick with me here. We're on a journey. This is an organic journey. I'm going to stop trying to stick to a schedule. And we're just going to be on this organic journey together, in which I will post when I have something that I am inspired to create. I would love to be a creator like ContraPoints, where you don't hear from me very often, but when you do. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me if you got to the end of this video. If you'd like to find me anywhere else, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok. Remember to drink water and be nice to each other and exude kindness and empathy with everything that you do, and I will see you in the next video.